Since 2018, I have been pouring 2-ounce samples of every meaningful bottle that has come into my house. The idea was that I could save a little bit behind for later in life and maybe not feel so bad when I kill a bottle that it's gone forever. One of the big questions on my mind throughout this process, though, was, does the whiskey diminish in these sample bottles? Does the silicone cap keep? Does the parafilm keep? All the steps that I go through. Does it keep the whiskey? Now, something I didn't know I could do before going into this video was the fact that I have a Stagg Jr. 2-ounce sample that I poured in 2019 in my hands right now. And it just so happens, and I actually have that same exact batch right here. So what we're going to do today is talk about this process of putting it in the sample bottles, and then ultimately do a taste test comparison of batch 11 of Stagg Jr. poured back in 2019 versus in the bottle right now. Curious about the results? Stick around. Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining everybody for an interesting science experiment here. I actually didn't know I could do this. I was purely going to talk about the process of actually what I do to retain these bottles in the sample bottles. But what I ended up finding out when I dug through my collection of samples was that I still have some of the bottles that I poured back in 2019. So this went from just a discussion to being a head-to-head science experiment. And I'm pretty excited. I get to drink some Stagg Jr. batch 11. So I win either way, but we will see if that sample lives up to the quality of the bottle that I have here. Now, for those that may not be aware of this process, I know a lot of people do this as well with their collections. But yes, I have been pouring 2 ounces of every meaningful bottle that came in my collection since 2018. There are about 350 of these 2-ounce samples. So essentially 700 ounces of whiskey. And I have absolutely no idea if this practice is actually going to pay off, or if I am just making myself feel better by leaving some behind that is still going to oxidize and lose its flavor even in this little bottle. But the steps that I do take to do this, this is a 2-ounce Boston Round sample bottle, and the cap, I always get the ones with the silicone. That way it has a tighter seal. And then just out of obsession, I do wrap parafilm around the sample in hopes to maintain it. All right, let's open this. It's been waiting in my basement. Gosh, 6 years. And we're open. There's no going back now. All right, pouring a little bit into a glass marked S. And now let's get into this bottle. Now, even this bottle here, I just recently got into this. This was pretty much halfway full just about a month ago. Recently got into it, but this is batch 11, 127.9 proof. And we are going to pour this in the glass marked B. So getting that in there now. I got about equal samples of this. So this is going to be a fun experiment. I'm actually really nervous about doing this. I've never gotten into any of these samples. I finally opened up one. Luckily though, that also means I can replace it, especially if this science experiment's a success. I am going to start first with the actual bottle. So this is going to be sample glass B. Let's start here and establish a baseline. Cheers, everybody. On the nose, the beautiful Buffalo Trace cherry with some good baking spices and a little bit of oak. Lovely, lovely Stagg Jr. there. All right. Now let's get into the sample nose and see if I can tell a difference, and then I'm going to back and forth them. Actually, a bit more of a flavor punch on S. Ooh, that's interesting. All right, let's back and forth here. Man, I'll be honest, it's actually surprising me right off the bat. The sample version, which would have actually been poured earlier on in the life cycle of this bottle, probably somewhere up here, are the ounces that we're comparing to. The nose is stronger. It comes out more pronounced, particularly with those baking spices. Once again, this is the exact same bottle, just it being in the sample bottle versus it being on my shelf all this time. Oh man. I mean, going back and forth, they are darn close. The sample though is just more pronounced. I am going to just randomize this while I'm staring at you, talking, spinning, not thinking about where they are, not going to look at the letters. Let's see if I can tell blind now if it's my left hand or my right hand. If I were to guess, the S is in this hand. There it is. Son of a gun. There's a little bit of a difference here, everybody. All right. Well, now let's see if that lives up on the taste and if the sample bottle is going to win this thing. And All right. Cheers, everybody. We're going to go into the bottled version first. Lovely mouthfeel. Tastes exactly what I was expecting. Cherry is just over the top on this batch, by the way. Even those baking spices I was getting on the nose are a bit diminished here. This is just all cherry with a bit of a nice oak all over the finish, too. Pretty much tasting like a cherry cordial now on the finish. One more sip. That gives me a baseline there. Tell you what, be perfectly happy with the bottle. Let's see if that sample bottle, though, has a little bit more flavor punch to it like it did on the nose. Fingers crossed. This could be a really cool experiment here. All right, let's get into this thing. Oh, son of a gun. Those aren't comparable. That sample bottle kills it. That sample bottle really killed it. What stuck out to me pretty much immediately was the intensity of the flavors I got on the front of the palate. And then that ended up carrying through from the mid palate to the finish. Every part of the process had more flavor from that dang sample bottle. I'm going to go in for one more sip of the sample, and then I'm going to blind these again. Cheers, everybody. Man, I am nerding out over this. There's actually even more pronounced grape coming through, not just the cherry. The flavors are so much deeper and darker. What the heck? All right, randomizing, staring at the camera, trying not to think about it, All right, I am intently staring at the lens here just to try to keep myself from looking down so I cannot see the letters. But let's see now if I can call out which one is the sample that I think has a lot more flavor on it. Off the taste, just like I did off the nose. I'm going to start with my right hand first, and then my left hand. Cheers, everybody. All right. There's the first sip there. Now let me go into the second glass. All right. Cheers again. It's really hard not to try to look around. Those are still really, really close, even blind. I'm going to go in for one more sip on the right and one more sip on the left. Man, the one on the right has a more impressive finish. Let's go to the one on the left one more time. Yeah, one on the right wins. This one has a more impressive experience through and through, but it stuck out even further when I'm going back and forth when it comes to the finish. All right, let's see what glass we got here. There we go. Sample. Well, interesting experiment there. I never knew I could do this experiment, and now I will probably have to do this with other bottles. But what wins here is the 2-ounce sample I took from this bottle 6 years ago now, which would have probably been somewhere in this range as far as the fill on this bottle when I took those 2 ounces. Now we're down to here. Still good whiskey. Don't get me wrong. But if I were to grade these two whiskeys, the finish on the sample still going on. If I were to grade these two whiskeys, I think the bottle as it stands right now would score between an 86, 87. I think that sample would score a solid 89. That's not a small difference in our scoring system. I mean, that's actually pretty big. Totally shocked by these results, by the way. Now, what that makes me feel good about is that all of those 350 sample bottles that I poured, hey, maybe there's a chance this whole dedication to this process paid off. The other learning, though, in this, and I can't say I did this every single time, if you are doing this like I do this, I think this advice is kind of obvious now in retrospect, but do not pour the last 2 ounces of the bottle into a sample up front. It's clearly better. Not having all that time to oxidize with the limited air in that sample bottle totally paid off. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. And just remember, while you can always find more whiskey, you can never have enough whiskey friends. So take care of those around you, and we'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.